So we already have our panelists sitting here, which is great. I'll be introducing them as well. But good afternoon. Let's start with what are we going to do in the next hour? In the next hour, we're going to explore how to drive gender diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. What is it that we can all do to have impact on that topic? We're going to explore how our panelists are doing that as individuals, but also as leaders in their organizations, but also outside their organizations. What are they doing outside like this to have that impact? What I think is key and really important is that all of you take away with you, what is it that you can do as individuals? Doesn't matter if you're currently in a leadership position or not, you can all have impact on gender diversity and on creating inclusive teams around you. Think about it. You want to work in a diverse team and an inclusive team because it's more fun to work in a team like that. Those teams perform better, which also makes your organization stronger. So think about what you can do as an individual. Don't just think about what the companies are doing or what the leaders in the companies are doing. Maybe from today and tomorrow, you can take away with you what you can do to have that impact. Take some tips away, ask some questions to the panelists so that you can think about that yourself. So I'm really excited to be here today with our panelists, Hanneke Sprout, the country leader for P&G Netherlands, Irina Gaasbeek, the managing director for the Netherlands Accenture, and online we have Cristina Falcone, who's the vice president of UPS for Public Affairs, UPS Europe. Joining us virtually, thank goodness she was able to do that. We all understand we cannot all travel all the time in times like this, so it's interesting. We usually have either in-person or virtual, and it's going to be fun to see what a hybrid panel will be like, but I'm sure it's going to work great. So before we move on to our panelists, just a short introduction of myself. My name's Jennifer Averson. I've been living in the Netherlands for 25 years, which is a little over half my life. I find that a big milestone this year to say, past the half-life in another country. And I came here from the US, where I grew up, where I went to university. And the reason I tell that story is because when I look back 25 years ago at how I came here, I really just jumped in and did something, followed my heart, didn't really know what I was getting into, didn't know what kind of risk I may be taking, didn't know if I was going to fail or succeed, but decided I'm just going to move to Europe, take this job opportunity and see what happens. And at the time, I probably didn't even really know what I was doing. But what I want to say is follow your hearts and jump in and take risks, because that brought me where I am today. And I'm really happy to be here in this country. And I'm really happy to be where I am today in my situation. And if I look back at how I got here, that first step was just jumping in and doing something and taking a risk. So don't be afraid to do that. So that brought me where I am here today. I live here now with my Dutch husband, been married for 20 years, another milestone I like to talk about, because I think that's an achievement. And I live with my two teenage daughters here as well. I work for Salesforce, responsible for our professional services, as Ebery said, for the Benelux. And I love my job. And I love my job. If I think about why do I like it so much, I think it's because I have a platform to be able to share my story, to be able to share it internally with all the other women I mentor and I can influence and I can impact, but also to do things like this. I'm able to do that because of the organization I have, who really supports wanting to help women rise in leadership. So that's where I get my inspiration from and my energy from, is being able to share my story and help others jump in, learn how to rise and lead, take some risks, and achieve their dreams. So one other thing I'd like to leave you with, and then we're going to move over to our panelists. One of my main messages, I think, when we look at women in leadership, they look like, let's just say they have it all together. I think you talked about this a little bit, Irina, as well. You know, they have work-life balance, they have confidence, they got to this position and they're doing, it seems like on the outside, it's all kind of easy for them, which is kind of intimidating for a lot of other people, because you think, well, they managed to do this. There must be something really special that maybe I don't have, some golden nugget in there that it's easy for them. But it's actually not easy for them at all. It was not easy getting into a leadership position It's not easy being in a leadership position, and everyone who is in any position has their challenges. So I want you to realize that your growth and achieving your dreams will be challenging. So you need to accept the ups and the downs and the challenges that go with it, and sometimes the feeling like you failed. If you want to be a woman in leadership like the women you see, there's not really any magic nugget to it. It's challenging. Okay, so now let's go to our panelists and hear your points of view on the subject. I'm going to take a seat here, and I'm going to start with Christina online there, and I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself and tell us your personal story and a piece of advice you have for everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Great. Okay. It's so great to be with you here, even though it has to be virtual this time. I hope next time it'll be in person. I'm Christina Falcone. I am the Vice President of Public Affairs for UPS Europe. I'm based in Brussels, Belgium. I'm actually Canadian. I relocated here to Brussels 4 years ago to move into this role. And I relocated here with my family. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And also been happily married for 14 years to the love of my life, who has been such a great support to me, which has been very important to me also over my years in building my career. I have the exciting role of leading a team of public affairs professionals across Europe. And so what my team does is they work on shaping policies that help communities, that help consumers, and that help businesses to compete in today's economy. So very exciting role that I'm in today here with UPS. I would say if I had to share my words of wisdom with the attendees here, it would be don't wait for a title to be a leader. Act in the position you want to be in and not in the one that you hold today. You know, I had this very conversation actually with my daughter just last night. She has an interview today, and it's a pretty important one. It's for president. It's for president of her primary school, but that's a pretty big deal. And so we sat there, and I was doing the role play of the principal, interviewing her. And I noticed when she was responding to my questions, she was responding rather timidly, and her voice was lower than, let's say, the normal assertive or full volume range that she typically graces us with at home. And so I stopped her and I gave her this advice. I said, you know, when you're in this interview, you need to be speaking to the principal, believing that you are already the school president. What do you know about the school council? You need to show the facts that you know. Talk about it. How would you use your body language if you're up there speaking to the entire school? Use that. Does the school president speak to students in a meek voice, or do they speak in a clear, confident tone? Why wait till someone asks you to deliver your first speech in this role when you can do that in this interview today? Don't timidly ask for the job. Show that you're already there and show that you have what it takes to do it in a great way. And that gave me a flashback to my first day at UPS. I mean, I grew up with this company. So 22 years old, that was just a couple of years ago, of course. And walking through the door, you know, very male-dominated industry, I was very intimidated. I was very young. I didn't see a lot of people around me that looked like me. You can definitely say I had imposter syndrome. I walked in feeling, you know, slightly insecure. In fact, I remember calling my mother on my lunch break saying, you know, they've just given me a project to work on, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to measure up. And she reminded me of the challenges that I had overcome in recent years and how I was able to succeed. And she encouraged me with that. And, you know, I really became quickly fascinated with the company of UPS. It was the year 2000, Y2K had just happened. E-commerce was just starting to take off. So was global trade. And so, you know, I felt a real sense of purpose in this company. I mean, they were helping to connect businesses and consumers all over the world through their airline and through airports. But then they also provided that final mile delivery right up to somebody's door, delivering a Christmas package. And I felt like, you know, this is a company that I really want to grow with. But how do I get there? I mean, I'm just the newbie. And so what I tried to do was to embody that manager persona. And that just didn't mean working long hours, but it meant I had to fight through my imposter syndrome to gather the courage to network proactively, to ask questions, to be curious, and raise ideas. I always had the fire and drive in my belly, but pushing myself to build my network helped me to learn so much and to learn and observe from other people. And I think it's that through building some of those connections, that helped giving me more encouragement over the way, different people recognizing me, helping to open doors for me down the road, which helped me to build my career. And so that's something, looking back, that I think it was just very important to find that courage, take the steps, and act in the role of where I wanted to be one day. And so I'm happy that I took those steps.
Great. Thank you very much for the story and the personal story of how you rise to leadership. I think the more people can tell their story about how they rose to leadership, the more tips everybody else can take to get there as well. So, Irina,
Yeah.
you just did the keynote and you told us already some things, so thank you for that. Maybe you have another personal story about your rise to leadership that you can share, and also words of wisdom for others.
Yeah.
One of your favorite maybe things that you can tell.
Yeah, sure. I just was a little bit short in my introduction. Like I said, you know that I'm working for Accenture, but outside Accenture, I live in North Holland, in the north of Holland, near the dunes at the sea, and that is also for me very important to work in. Besides balancing work in a crowded environment, and then. And having a more relaxed time at home, or environment at home, so to say. I like walking in the dunes with the dog, with my partner, go out on a bike there. We have a large garden. I like gardening, just sit in there, just relax there. And for me, that is a perfect way to balance my work with also moments to relax and to rewind. And that works very good for myself. If I look at my start at Accenture, I said I started straight from a technical university. So I'm an engineer, and you can expect that, imagine that I was raised there and educated among a lot of men. Then I started working at Accenture. After my university, I knew that I wanted to combine more working with people and having teams having an impact on top of the content. So therefore I said, okay, then I need to go to consulting, at least for the first few years of my life, to do so. And then we'll see. Well, I'm still around, but the starting point was just to go for a few years and work at Accenture. It was as a consulting at that time. And there I started working based on my background also in the technology department. So again, I worked with a lot of male colleagues. And I think one of the greatest lesson learned for me was, after working there for a year or 5, 6, it was going very well. I had different roles. I made some promotions. But then I had a career counselor, and he said to me, Irene, who are you? You act like a man. And it's a one-liner, and it's still on my mind, but he was right. Then I was opening up and thinking, hey, you're right. You have a mask on your work. You're not yourself. You're not a woman at your work. You're having a mask to play the game with the guys. And just that one-liner, I think, was one of the best advices I got in my career. And I said, okay, I want to work on myself, that I take that mask off and be myself at work. I don't try to play the game of the guys. And of course, that's going step by step, and it took me years. But I think by doing that, it's much more fun. Whether you see me at work or at home, I'm completely the same person. More fun, and I think in the end also better performance. And that was a real important eye-opener for myself. And I think later in my career, I did a number of things in Accenture, worked in different industries, different clients, mostly within the Netherlands, a few international assignments as well. And then in a certain moment in time, you have in those firms that you're up for a promotion to partner or not. And I think there it nearly went wrong again. And that was a major lesson learned for me. I was too much a pleaser. I couldn't say no. And I thought, I want that promotion. So everything we do, everybody who asks me something, I'm going to do it. Not understanding that you can better have 2 balls that you have in the air than 3 and 1 drops. So imagine what happened in that important year of my career. I was a little bit too late by saying no. So a number of things went wrong. And then I immediately thought, oh my gosh, my career is over. But it doesn't work that way. If you have your sponsors in your company, if people know you, if people trust you and know your abilities, they say, okay, we'll get you out of the shit. And we're going to help you. That is never going to happen again. And that's my moment of when I said, this is never going to happen again. I'm going to learn to say no. And those, and probably you all have those moments in life, but it's important to think about it. What are the lessons learned you have that change you as a person and helped you grow as a leader?
What I think is really important to take away from that, though, as well, is that leaders, like in our positions, in your position, the country managers, have had these challenges as well. And again, we think, oh, you got to this position and it was probably a smooth ride because you know how to do it. And it's really important to share that story of, well, actually it went wrong, but I picked myself up and here's how I did that, to encourage other people to understand how to pick themselves up. And you also said, what's also really important is having your sponsors and your network.
Yes.
And you can say it, but I think we need to educate a little more on what that means also in more than just today, but how do you find those sponsors? What does it mean to have a sponsor? I finally have people sponsoring me. Took me a long time to get there. So if I had done it earlier, things would also have gone maybe faster or smoother. Now I realize the value in that. But you have to figure out how to make that happen. So if you're mentoring other people or we're sharing stories, I think it's really a good one to help other people. So thank you for that. Now over to you, Hanneke. Same question, introduction, personal story, and what's important to you that you can share.
So Hanneke Spruit, living in Rotterdam. I'm the country leader for P&G, so Procter & Gamble. I hope you know P&G of our beautiful brands. Gillette, Ariel, Dreft, Always, Pampers. I'm the mom of 3. So a boy 8, another boy 11, and a girl 12. And I started with P&G 20 years ago, almost, so 2001. I spent the first I've always worked in sales, so commercial roles. I spent the first couple of years in Rotterdam, fell in love with a guy who was living in Moscow in Russia. And I felt already at that time love was more important than career. So I thought, what the heck, I'm going to move to Russia. And I actually wanted to resign from P&G, assuming, so don't assume. First piece of advice, don't make assumptions. So I wanted to resign because I was going to move to Russia. And then they said, but we want you to stay and we are going to find you a role in Russia. So I not only moved for love, but I also moved for P&G to Russia. I spent a couple of years in Russia, in Moscow. Fantastic adventure, I would say. Second tip is if you have ever have the opportunity to do an international assignment, for me it was a fantastic enrichment of my life and of my career. I became pregnant in Russia of the girl, so my daughter decided I wanted to move back, or we wanted to move back to the Netherlands, basically to be close to my mom, because I wanted to be close to my mom when I was becoming a mom. So we moved back, and at that time I decided to resign from P&G. So I left P&G. Because I wanted to basically jump, and I felt my life, I was ready for a next chapter outside of P&G. I actually stayed away for 5 years, and in that 5 years, I never thought I would come back to P&G, because if you leave P&G, you don't come back to P&G. That's what normally happens. I became an entrepreneur. And I'm super inspired by all the female entrepreneurship power examples here, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a corporate girl, let's put it like this. So after 2 years of entrepreneurship, I joined one of my clients, a consultancy firm. I worked for 3 years in the area of personal leadership development. So I was touched by your story on personal development. And those 3 years enabled me not only to help others develop their vision, their personal vision, but also to really think through, who am I? What are the dreams I have? What do I want to achieve? What are my qualities? What am I great at? And I came to the conclusion that I'm a corporate girl and that I'm best in a corporate environment. And I mean, I love the whole area of consultancy and personal development, but for me it was too narrow. I missed the business and I wanted to combine both. So I decided I wanted to move back into corporate life. Without knowing I would go back to P&G, but then sort of universe plays out, right? Some things just are meant to be, and I think it was meant to be for me to return to P&G. So I, by coincidence, met with a former colleague. He invited me to have coffee, and I think a month later I rejoined P&G, which is now 8 years ago. I held different positions in the past 8 years. Yeah, this is something I really want to talk about. I held different positions in the past 8 years. 3 years ago, they approached me and they asked me if I wanted to take the country leadership for P&G. Imposter syndrome hit me at that time. I definitely thought it would not work out and they would find out that, you know, I'm not up for being a country leader, but it did work out. So I said yes. And I've been country leader now for 3 years. Business results are strong, but not only business results are strong. I think the organizational progress that we have made in the past 3 years is fantastic. And there's actually 2 examples that I want to give that are sort of linked to Rise and Lead and the topic that we are discussing today. The first one, and I'm very happy to see a few men in the room, but this is not a women's topic, right? This is not a women's topic, and we need to include men in the conversation. And we not only need to include men in the conversation how to transform leadership, but we also need to include men in the conversation how to transform, let's say, the tasks at home. Because, you know, if we women are supposed to do everything at home, we will never be able to rise and lead, in my case, in a corporate environment. Hence, what is needed, including men, in the professional environment, in the home environment. So what did we do with P&G? And I'm super proud that we actually took the initiative. Last year, we announced that we were introducing Share the Care. So basically paid paternity leave for all dads working or same-sex couples working for P&G. So they get 8 weeks fully paid. You see some examples of some of the families enjoying the first, you know, period that is so important with the small ones. And men really truly understanding what it is to share the care at home, so that they also stimulate their wives to, let's say, share the ambition in the work environment. So that would be my sort of first piece of advice.
Great. And you had a second slide here. You guys are going to advance the slides for me, right? Yes. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a very busy, colorful slide, but also something that I'm extremely proud of. Because as I was sharing with you, I worked a couple of years in the area of personal leadership development. Irene also touched upon it, the importance of having a personal development plan, growing as a person, understanding who you are, what you want to contribute. And I truly believe an employer plays a role to facilitate people to do just that. So what we did, or what I did 3 years ago, I introduced a personal leadership program for all people working for P&G in the Netherlands. So they get 6 months to develop their personal vision. It's a beautiful program. 7 Habits Covey is a big part of this program. And they basically all formulate these core questions in life. So who am I? What am I good at? What do I want to achieve? And what are my core values? And if they are clear for themselves, they're also more clear on what they want to achieve for P&G and within P&G. And this helped enormously to grow our people, but also to include them as their true self. So if you know who you are and you can bring your true self to the workplace and you can connect from authenticity is a word, that we so often use, but if you can truly connect from your authentic self with your colleagues, I think that's where we achieve inclusion, true inclusion. And then it really doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, the color of your skin, your sexuality, your cultural, it doesn't really matter because it's about your unique self that you bring to the workplace. So I think as an employer, we have the responsibility to help, our people. And this is, then how it looks like. This is a few of the personal visions that my people have developed. So that's the second example that I'm very proud of.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. And let's just go to the next slide because we have capturing some of your points on there of what you've talked about, what I thought you were going to talk about. So I hope I've captured the right points. I'd like to ask you, and maybe Christina can start, if you look at this, what stands out for you and what advice you have on one of these points, coming out of your comfort zone. I think everything on here is what all of the leaders in our panel have had to do. We talked about balance, we talked about comfort zone, raise your hand, Irina said, you have to raise your hand to tell people what it is that you want. Christina, do you have a story you'd like to share or a point on the points that are on our slide? Make sure we can hear her. Can we hear Christina?
Sorry, I'll take it. I think I'm off mute now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think stepping out of your comfort zone and being willing to take risks is such an important one. I think that if you recognize that sometimes reaching that next step isn't going to be possible unless you're willing to make yourself feel a little uncomfortable, maybe sometimes very uncomfortable. When you're feeling uncomfortable, that you're going through some growth, right? So if I look back, I was very comfortable in my old role in Canada. I had a great position. I had built up my network in Ottawa with the government people and with other colleagues. My kids were happy in school. I lived 5 minutes from the grandparents. But I knew if I wanted to continue to move on, I would have to step out of that comfort zone. And that meant moving to another continent. Fortunately, I had a partner also that supported that. But it was, again, I felt, going back into that role, being now here in Europe, dealing with European institutions, which I've got to learn all over again. I had to push myself to get there. And I think that's what, our organization is certainly trying to do to change that landscape of being, males at the top. And we've come a long way in 20 years since I started. We have a female CEO now, and it's fantastic. And I think there's a lot more authenticity that people are bringing to work. But we're encouraging people to step out there and come and lead a meeting. We're pulling them up to put them in front of an audience. So I do that with my group. You know, when I lead my monthly calls, I have a junior person in the team or someone maybe that doesn't get a voice at the table so often to organize the agenda, to pick the speakers, to lead the call. And that's the opportunities we need to find to other people, challenging them, but encouraging them, right, to step outside of their comfort zone.
Great. Really good examples. Thank you. Irina, I'm curious, when did you consider yourself a leader?
Oh my gosh.
Was it when you got a certain title, when you became a manager, or did you see yourself as a leader before that?
I don't know when I started using the word leader, but what I knew a long time ago is that, and later it came out in all kinds of profiling that you also probably did. For me, significance, making an impact is really important. And I found out that if I can leverage more people, I can have much more impact. So I think from early on, I started to build teams around me to increase the impact that we could have as a team, as a whole. So I'm not an individualist. So when did I speak of a leader? I don't know, but I think probably naturally, I started building teams around me to have more impact than on my own. Yeah.
Great, good. Because I think that maybe more for women than men, I don't know, but I think women coming out of their shell and actually saying, I'm a leader is tough. And they feel more comfortable if they have a title that is VP or above, or at least something that looks like they're a leader, then they can maybe say they're a leader. I know that I had that, you know, and I remember someone who said to me, because I said something, I was on stage doing a presentation for the entire company. And I said, well, thank you to the leadership team for allowing me to talk about this topic at this event. And the woman Ava turned to me and said, but you are a leader too. What do you mean the leadership team? I said, yeah, but you're the leadership team. I'm not the leadership. And I'll never forget that moment. I was like, oh, she's slapping me on the wrist and telling me I should be calling myself a leader right there and then. And I'll never forget, those are the people you need in your organization to do that. But also, we all as individuals can do that, even if we're not managers yet, encouraging other people to say to them, but you are a leader as an individual, because look what you just led this meeting, or you just led this. We have people leading events in our company all the time who aren't, you know, they might have just graduated from university 2 years ago, but they're a leader because look what they're influencing and they're impacting. So I think that's a really important message to spread as well. One other topic, we have till 2:15, right? Timekeeper, so great. I'm interested in hearing how you see, how do I put it the right way to the men in the room as well, but I find it a really tough topic still in my environment with friends and with company. I find that a lot of men don't recognize this as an issue, because they say, yeah, but of course equality. Of course women should have a career, and, you know, we support this completely. So because they you know, in a positive way, they're seeing that and they're saying, but why is there an issue then? And the pipeline, yeah, if there's no women in the pipeline in tech, then they probably don't want to be in tech. So that's not a problem. That's up to them. If they came in, we would hire them, but they're not there. So it's then having to explain that it actually is an issue to them. And I'd love your advice on how we can work to talk about this in a positive way and not, you know, being too hard, but not everybody understands that this is still a problem.
What I like to do is turn it around. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. It's really an opportunity for your company to grow, for people to grow. If you look at the younger generation, they do not want to work for companies anymore who are not clear on being an inclusive company. So I turn it around. So before they can say, I don't even do those discussions with them. Yes. I do it the other way around. I say, you work for a company that wants to grow to 50-50. And we're talking about male, female now, but of course, we have a much broader agenda in being inclusive. But we're now specifically taking this example. I said, do you embrace that? Yes. I said, so it's one of your core KPIs? Yes. So what are you going to do? What is your contribution to achieve that? And don't come with excuses, it's not possible. It is possible. We see that it's possible. So I turn it around. It's an opportunity. How are you growing to an inclusive team? Good. I don't even go into the debate if some people do the debate on why is the problem, why do we need to do it, I say, come on, it's 2020. And then I just stop.
Good, like that. Thank you. Other responses to that topic?
Exactly. We need to turn it around. I sometimes do go into the debate. Sometimes it's still, I would say, needed to go into the debate. But what works well with men, also with women, but with men, is just to share the business case behind why do we do what we do, right? I mean, it's ethically right. It's 2020, 50-50, you know, that's all true. But there's also such a clear business case behind chasing 50-50 across every level in your organization. Because truly those companies perform better. And in the end, I work for a company that is after delivering results. And this is just a means and a tool to deliver better results. And that works well.
Good. I like that. Thank you. Thanks for that advice. I would like to see if there's any questions from the group. Yes.
I'd like to share one of the affirmations that as a woman that I keep telling all the students I was teaching at international school. Fail is the first attempt in learning. So it's something to be proud of. So the word fail is switched as a learning experience. And especially because I was a physics and mathematics teacher, the mindset of women and girls were very different. So this was my slogan to the girls out there. And failures are the pillars of success. And I would show Steve Jobs' track record, how he failed many times before he became a success, even for men. So that's
Thank you.
sharing with all the women in this group.
Good. I'll just repeat the one-liner then at the end, that failures are I'm going to say the pillars is the right word, the pillars of success.
And fail is first attempt in learning.
To fail is the first attempt in learning. Really good advice. Thank you. You had a question or a comment?
Question, was it on my face, I guess? With the knowledge of now, it's for the three of you, what advice would you give to the 20-plus version of yourself who started a career?
I'm going to repeat the question. What advice would you give to your 20-plus self when you started in your career?
Yeah, so the first advice is I mean, my life really changed when I started to formulate my vision. And it's hard to do so if you're a 20-year-old person. So I'm experimenting a bit with as of what age, you know, how much luggage do you need to have on your back before you're actually able to formulate a thorough vision. But the advice I would give is really think through, let's say, the core questions that I just mentioned in the introduction. So that would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, good one. And for me, I would give the advice to really look at, if you're going to look where you want to work, really look at the culture of the company, look at the core values of the company, because it's not only the work that you are doing every day, but it's also for your own purpose. Well, like you said, what do you want to achieve? If you know what your own purpose is, it's very important that it's in line with the company, because otherwise it's you work a lot of hours during the day. If your battery will derail, if you don't work in line with your own beliefs and the company beliefs. And I think that is, in my time, that was underestimated. I even didn't give it a thought. And I think nowadays it's much more important to do so. Yeah.
Christina, we didn't forget about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that setting the vision out for yourself is so important, and then being quite specific with that, right? So, you know, if you look today, or a 20-year-old, you're starting out, what do you want to have achieved by the end of the year? And not just professionally, but personally too, because we need to grow personally and be happy if we're going to be successful overall. That's how we are a whole human being. and then put those specific steps that you're going to take to achieve those goals, whether it's along your career or personally or whatever it is. Having that vision, but with a plan that you literally sit down and write out, would be something that I would advise.
Good. Thank you. Let's see if there are more questions. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question. You were saying that possibly you have sort of guide coaching people about their career. And what happens if after all this you realise that some discussion with you that perhaps Procter & Gamble isn't the place for it?
Yeah, beautiful outcome, because we can't keep everybody. So what I always say with these development programs is normally what happens is, I would say, 20 to 30% of the people, their commitment and loyalty to P&G increases enormously because they find out they want to become, I don't know, the leader of Gillette, the leader of Gillette in the world, or they want to become the new country leader for the Netherlands. 20 to 30% of the people decides P&G is not where I want to, where I see myself a couple of years from now, because I see myself as an entrepreneur, or I see myself in the area of, volunteering or whatever, which is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't run these programs to keep my people. I run these programs to develop my organization, and then there's a 30-40% of the people who like it, but it's not really a life changer for them, which is also perfectly fine. Yeah. And help is, yes, I do help them. Because the program itself is already a help, defining, but where then do I see myself 2, 3, 4 years from now? But also the power of the network that we have in my own personal network. And of course, I'm well connected and I know loads of people, and when I hear a dear colleague sharing that him or her wants to, go in a completely different industry, and if I know someone in the industry, I do help. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a question I see coming in from the virtual audience. Where are you still getting the most resistance within your companies to acceptance of gender leadership, gender balanced leadership? It's hard to see.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I couldn't really see it very well. Where are you still getting the most resistance within your companies to the acceptance of gender balanced leadership? Where are you seeing the resistance, and then what do you do maybe about the resistance you see?
I think I see the resistance in the middle layer of the organization. The younger generation in our organization, they long for inclusion and diversity. They expect it from us. And if they don't get it, if they don't see it and feel it, that creates a distance, and they might also then go away. They really long for it. Top management and my own leadership team, we are fully committed. No excuses. Nobody tries to. But I think the layer underneath that, the middle management, specifically if their business results are under pressure, then it's starting to then the resistance starts.
And how do you recognize that as resistance? What form does that come in?
You see it in if you look in my story this morning, you see it in recruiting, you see it in promotions, appointing people in specific roles. They start to say then, no, not at the moment, because now I have to focus on the business. And then I know this is business. This is part of your business. So we're not going to derail and have indeed, like you say, a conversation why we do it. And building your business is constantly balancing short-term and long-term results. And because we have a short-term issue, doesn't mean that we are going to change our long-term goals. They're there for a fact. They're going to stay. So take it as a given and handle with it. So I try to have the discussion on short-term versus long-term. Yeah.
I would add on to that. I think we're seeing something similar with that middle layer, right? I mean, we run what we call business resource groups with different segments. We've got a women's leadership group, we've got an Asian business resource group, millennials, and sometimes you get a little bit of, I guess, what they see as conflict with the workload on their plate. So I think, in order to keep that energy up, that's where we're trying to take the opportunities to give them more exposure. To say, look, if you're helping to run these programs, we're going to give you an opportunity to actually lead an event working with the president of the company, to kind of pull them up again and see the value and remind them of the purpose of that these groups are meant to foster their leadership abilities, to give them exposure to others, and to re-energize them again. I think it's something that just has to be constant, because you're right, it's got to be there at the top, or it's not going to happen. I think this next generation, as you've said, I even hear it from my children at home, inclusivity, it's just a given in their mind. But that middle segment didn't really go through years in the company with that environment, so they need to see the benefits of it, and that's part of our role to do.
Nice. Are there any other questions from the group? Yes.
I was wondering for both ladies. So if you look at recruitment, right? You have a position, you need to recruit your people. Do you ask your recruiters to come with a 50-50 balance in gender candidates?
The question is around recruiting and whether we are asking our recruiters to come with a 50-50 balanced pipeline.
Definitely. No, so 50-50, and I was triggered by your, it's 50-50, it's not 70-30 or 80-20, because we have a bit of catching up still to do, and we sometimes have discussion if you then need to do 50-50 or if you need to do maybe 60-40 or 70-30. So I'm thinking through, do we need to, because now we sometimes do a bit more 60-40 than 50-50, because we're catching up a bit still. But definitely, and not just for recruitment, because we recruit a lot from university, but also, just on every slate of every promotion, consider both the men and the women. Yeah.
Yes, same here. We first, it's the same in terms of pipeline, 50-50. But what's even more important in my mind is that in the teams who are doing the selection, that there is also a good balance, because people hire lookalikes. It's proven. So you also have to have a diverse team who assesses people, because otherwise you can predict what's the outcome. So that's also something we are very keen on in our recruiting processes.
Yeah.
Good.
And I would say, even for us, a big focus in terms of changing with our recruiting, which seems so simple, is even starting off with our operations, right? So taking a look at what do our advertisements look like when we're recruiting people to work at UPS. Do you see women in these ads, and how are you promoting this as an opportunity? Because so many people in senior positions in this company started, just moving packages within one of our facilities. So it is a real area of opportunity, and we're very far behind in that area. So the recruitment, they were really trying to be strong on really building up the women in that base, and we're doing that with very targeted communications.
Excellent. We do have time for another question. Wait, I see here. No, that was already asked. Okay. Anything else in the group that you'd like to, from the group here, you'd like to ask? Yes.
Well, we talked a lot about safety and diversity, and also the balance of 50-50 or 60-40. You also addressed pay gap. With big issue now, and I know that transparency about salaries also help to reduce the pay gap in organizations. So how do you address that?
The question is, are these organizations also addressing the pay gap that we see in gender? Yeah.
Yes, we do that. And the way how we do it is that we have clear salary ranges for a role or a function. And we have an external company looking at all our salaries. So we do an external audit every year, and that company advises on where they see the pay gap and where we need to fix it. And by doing that on a yearly basis, you really prevent that things could derail that you don't see closely, because we don't accept the pay gap. That's first, of course. But by doing a yearly external audit, you really have visibility if it happens somewhere, and then you can fix it within a year. So we make a reservation of our salary or our yearly salary increases, our budget. We reserve a part to fix pay gaps, and then we do that based on the advice from an external audit.
Good. Are we doing
Very
that yet?
similar approach.
Okay,
in PG.
good.
Yeah,
Good.
and we implement a similar process, and I think it's two important things you have to look at, right? There's the equity pay gap, right? So in terms of people getting paid the same level for the same role, and then there's the gender pay gap, and that's why we focus a lot of very targeted initiatives to get more women up to the senior ranks. Because if you look at the company overall, and on average, how much is a woman making versus a man, you're going to see that gap because you've got more males in the senior role. So how can we move women up? How can we motivate them, recruit partly, but also move women up in the organization so that we narrow that gender pay gap?
Well, I think that was a really good note to end on that next topic that we can maybe spend a whole panel on. So thank you for that. I want to thank you for sharing your stories, also personal stories, not just the corporate stories. I think the personal stories are really powerful. I like the idea that you say, I'm the same here as I am at home. I'm the same person. You're learning to remove your mask. We all need to remove our masks we have on at work because we think we have to have that mask on. And I like that topic as well. It's really important to bring your authentic self to work. So thank you for sharing your stories. And we will see you in other parts of the summit, I think, in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Hanneke, thank you so much. Yeah, and Irene, thank you. One of the questions I receive all the time when we're having a summit is people asking the Rise and Lead team, how do you get these bold leaders to come to your summit? We get those questions a lot. I mean, did you not enjoy having these leaders share their experiences and wisdom with us? Did you not enjoy it? Yeah, I always like to learn from experienced leaders because I think maybe it's an African proverb that says experience is the best teacher. So why are you trying to struggle when you can meet somebody to learn what they already know so that they can provide that shortcut? And that's why I interview leaders. It's for myself and for all of you as well, just to inspire women to rise and lead. That's simple as that. And so I want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. And if I have to give you a tip, if you want to reach leaders, they are waiting for you. They are very open-hearted. They're looking for you. They've gotten to that stage where they want to make a difference. But the question is, do you ask? Do you ask? They're not going to just come here and say, hey, you pick you up. You need to start reaching out to the leaders you admire. Tell them you admire them. Tell them what you admire about them. Just build relationships. It's not always about asking them for something in particular. Just build relationships. Find out how you can also support them. And that's how you build relationships with leaders. So I hope you like that. I'm going to send you an invoice later. So I want to talk briefly to the people watching us online. Thank you so much for joining and for, sitting all through this session. Now we are going to go for our lunch. Okay, we have lunch prepared for those here. So I'm sure you have some lunch around in your house or in your office. But I would advise you to grab your lunch and, head back to the networking sessions. So we have the facilitated group networking mentoring circle. Some of you already experienced it this morning, and they all sent a text that they enjoyed it. Or you can go to the one-on-one networking section as well. Head to this networking sessions. So you either click networking. When you click on networking, it's for one-on-one. So random people will come up and you get to connect with them. How cool is that? But if you want to be in a room where Onzilla is with about 20 people at a time, you can head to the group networking rooms. And please, immediately after that, we have 3 other powerful concurrent sections going on at the same time. I want to remind you that when you come back, if you are maybe a professional and you are so interested in gender diversity, equity, and everything, please go straight to the stage, because Shaila is going to be coming here with other powerful leaders, like Margaret and the rest and the other leaders. And if you are a marketing professional or a business person, because last year we got a feedback that, entrepreneurs wanted to feel more included in a bigger session. So we have another session, but you need to find it under session in a room. And it's about how to do better in your business as a marketer, instead of performing, and how to be real. So we have powerful marketing directors from WeTransfer. And let me not forget to appreciate WeTransfer for being our difference maker sponsor for the Rise and Lead Summit 2020. So please, a hand of applause for WeTransfer. And so there is another section. If you are an African leader, because we canceled the African Summit and so many people were already registered, so they are having a concurrent session as well. So you go to the African leaders, so because they're going to be talking about things that concern you, that matter to you as a woman who is living in Africa. You will find that under the session as well. And after that, I think we have the final panel and we close. So thank you for being patient, and keep typing on the chat box, keep connecting. And the most important thing, whatever you learn from here, get ready to make a difference in our world. Thank you. So lunchtime, outside there is lunch. And I forgot to mention the C-level roundtable. So that will happen here directly, please. That is going to happen first. Okay. And sorry, I missed up some things. We will have workshops first for professionals, and then we have workshops for entrepreneurs and the C-level. And after the workshops, then we will have the other panels. Thank you.